Okay, so this is the EOC worksheet number 4. It's all about factoring, which we just covered. So let's just review this. The very top has the 4 steps. First, you always want to look and see if there's a GCF. Then we're going to do the T-chart if there's 3 terms. If there's only 2 terms, then that means they're perfect squares. You can take the square root of them. One parentheses will be a plus, one will be a minus, and it has to be subtracting. That's the only way you can factor it. And then if there's a coefficient, meaning like in example 3, there's a 2 out front, then you're going to put that 2 in both parentheses and then reduce. So let's just do some examples to kind of refresh your memories. So example 1, there's no GCF, nothing, because there's a 1 right here. Nothing will go into 1 and 5 and 6. So I'm going to go to my T-chart. And your first one is first times last, so that's a 6x squared. And your second column is your middle term, which is a 5x. And then if you remember, we list factors of 6. So I could do 1 times 6. Or I could do 2 times 3. We want to figure out which of these will add up to give me 5. So if I did 1 plus 6, that's 7, so that doesn't work. If I do 2 plus 3, that's 5. So those are the ones that I'm going to use. So to write my answer, I'm going to do my 2 parentheses, split up my x squared into an x and an x, and my answers were a positive 2 and a positive 3. So that's your answer for example 1. Again, you should be writing these down in your notes. Example 2. Okay, let's go back to step 1. Find a GCF. This one has a GCF, 3. 3 goes into 3, and 9, and 12. So the first thing I'm going to do is take a 3 out. I'm going to divide everything by 3. So 3 divided by 3 is 1. So that leaves me with x squared. 9 divided by 3, I'm doing my second term, 9 divided by 3 is 3x. And last term, 12 divided by 3 is 4. So I factored out that GCF of a 3. Now I'm going to go to my T-chart. We're going to ignore this 3 for right now, okay? Don't worry about that. First times last. And remember, that's a negative, so it's a negative 4x squared. And your middle term is a positive 3x. Now, to multiply to get a negative, that means one has to be negative and one has to be positive. So I could do negative 1 times 4, or I could do 1 and negative 4, or I could do 2 and negative 2. So remember, the way we figure out which one is our answer is we add them and see which one gives us 3. So if I add these, negative 1 and 4, that gives me 3. So that's going to be my answer. Let me go through and show why the rest don't work. If I add these, 1 and negative 4, I get a negative 3, which is not right. I wanted the positive. And 2 and negative 2 is 0, which again is not 3. So let's go on from here. I'm going to do 2 parentheses. Split up my x squared, so I'm going to have an x and an x. And my answers were a negative 1 and a positive 4. And the last thing I need to do, since I took out a GCF, I'm going to put that in the front. So this is your final answer. Alright, let's do example 3. There's no GCF because nothing will go into 2, and this is a 1 and a 15. So I'm going to go to my T-chart. First times last is negative 30 x squared. And your middle term, there's really a 1 there, so it's a negative 1x. Again, to multiply to get a negative, one's positive and one's negative. So I could do like negative 1 and 30, or 1 and negative 30. I could do negative 2 and 15, or 2 and negative 15, or negative 3 and 10, or 3 and negative 10, or negative 5 and 6, or 5 and negative 6. Okay, let's add them and see which one works. If I add these together, I get 29, so that's not right. If I add these together, I get negative 29, so that's not right. If I add these together, I get 13, that's not right. If I add these together, I get negative 13, that's not right. If I add these, I get 7, that's not right. If I add these, I get negative 7, that's not right. If I add these, I get 1. It's close, but it's not right because I want a negative 1. If I add these, I get negative 1. So, let's do our parentheses. Remember, step 4 said that if there was a coefficient, you put it in both. So I'm going to put a 2x in both of them. A 2x here and a 2x here. And my answers were a positive 5 and a negative 6. And then we always have to reduce. So let's reduce. My first parentheses, will anything go into 2 and 5? No. So I'm just going to have 2x plus 5. My second parentheses, a 2 and a 6, there is something that will go into those. 2. 2 goes into 2, and 2 goes into 6. So I'm going to divide by 2. 2 divided by 2 is just x, and 6 divided by 2 is 3. So your answer is a 2x plus 5 and an x minus 3. Okay, number 4, there is a GCF. 6 will go into both of these, so I can take a 6 out. 3 is 6. So I'm going to divide everything by 6. 6 divided by 6 is just 1, x squared. And 96 divided by 6 is 16. Now, this one has 2 terms. And if you look at number 3 on the directions up above, it says that if there's 2 terms, that means it's a perfect square. So I'm going to do my 2 parentheses. Split up my x squared into an x and an x. And again, number 3 says 1 will be a plus and 1 will be a minus. And the square root of 16 is 4. Now there's one more thing I need to do. I took out a GCF, remember, so I'm going to bring that GCF down. So that's example 4. Alright, let's look at example 5. It's 3 terms. There's no GCF. Nothing goes into 1 and 3 and 5. So I'm going to do my T-chart. First times last is negative 5x squared. Your middle term is negative 3. So to multiply to get a negative, one's negative or one's positive. So I could do 1 times negative 5, or I could do negative 1 times 5. We add them to see which one's the answer. If I add 1 and negative 5, I get negative 4. So that's not right. If I do negative 1 plus 5, I get 4. And that's not right. So this one is not factorable because there's nothing that worked. So if you do your T-chart and none of them work, that's called not factorable. Okay? Last example, there's 2 terms, which means that it's got to be a perfect square. I'm going to do 2 parentheses. There's no GCF. There's no number that goes into 4 and 25. So I'm just going to do my parentheses. I'm going to take square roots. The square root of 4 is 2, so that's going to go here. I'm going to split up my n squared into an n and an n. It's a perfect square. 1 will be a plus and 1 will be a minus. And the square root of 25 is 5. So, if you will go try the multiple choice, and I'll check it when I come to your facility.